Surviving Reality contains explicit content full of snark and sarcasm that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Surviving Reality.
I'm Corey.
And I'm Carly, and we're back with more Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. You thought it was over?
It's not over.
Not yet. We've got a reunion special to sit through.
This felt suspiciously like, we were talking about this upstairs after we just finished watching it. This felt like an impulse reunion because there were rumors that were flying about that this was like a 20 episode long season, that we were expecting a part A and a part B, 10 episodes and 10 episodes. And then did Hulu catch wind of this and they were like, oh crap, people want more of this show. They're expecting the whole other 10 episodes of this show. We were thinking about that as a season 3. We're packaging that up right now.
Yeah, I'm really annoyed at the way that they dropped this show. So it has nothing to do with the production of Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, but the way Hulu presents the show irritates me. I don't think they should be dropping an entire season in one day. And you definitely shouldn't end the last episode on a cliffhanger when you're going to make us wait. You don't even have the date. They're telling us, they're confirming a season 3 within this reunion, but they don't tell us when season 3 is going to happen.
Were they trying to hit a deadline and then they realized they weren't going to hit that deadline? And so it just kind of got chalked up to, well, I guess we'll just do a reunion and say that it's season 3 now. So it's not a season 2 A and a B anymore. We're just sitting on this footage for another 6 months, probably, is what's going to happen.
It definitely seems like this was impromptu because they went from, what was it, mid-May that they dropped the whole season? It is July 1st. And this isn't even a multi-part reunion. This is no Sister Wives, one-on-one, 4-part tell-all.
I will say that a lot of the elements that we had discussed about improvements for the Sister Wives tell-all can be seen on display here. So as far as the format goes, like we're saying, production, I don't have a lot of complaints from the production side. I think a lot of it has to do with the marketing and the distribution of the show in its final form. But we got to see, splitting the cast on 2 different couches, but everybody's there. Well, most everybody.
Not everyone.
Not everybody, but we'll get to that. But then also backstage setups where you have other commentary that you can cut to that lightens the mood. Some humor to cut more serious stuff that's going on out on stage.
At one point, all of the husbands are all grouped around the TV. There are couches in the green room for them to sit on, but they are sitting within inches of the television.
They're corralled around the TV specifically. Yeah, they were sitting across the room watching. I think they couldn't hear it. So whatever the volume level was on the TV, that was what a lot of the complaints were initially, was everybody was quieting down, hushing everyone around them from speaking because I can't hear the TV. They didn't have an audio feed. They needed a monitor back there or something.
Been there, done that. I understand.
Can't hear it.
Trying to watch TV while the L's going by? Forget it.
On your little LCD rented speakers that are built in on the thin, flat screen. Not ideal.
Well, let's get into it. This is hosted by Nick Viall, the dickwad from The Bachelor. You all remember him.
I don't remember him. I don't know who this person is. I've never heard of him. Never seen him before in my life. I think he did a pretty good job hosting, though. I mean, of like holding people to task of the questions that he was asking. If they dodged a question, he made sure to go back and reiterate that, restate it in another way that made it more conducive for them to answer.
I'm wondering if they knew when all of them went on his podcast, because he has a podcast called The Viall Files, and every one of them made an appearance on it at some point before and after the season aired.
I think it's Viall. Viall?
Well, that
Viall.
doesn't rhyme with file.
Yeah, it's not like a Reese's Pieces sort of situation.
So,
Reese's Pieces.
I'm going to call him what I want.
Okay. All right.
We lived in Chicago at the same time that he did. You haven't heard the stories about him. I will call him whatever I want. Also, he has a bit of a mush mouth, doesn't he? I think that's the biggest complaint from people, even with their podcast. You didn't hear it?
I didn't really catch that. I don't think.
He's making improvements.
I got distracted by Jessi's husband's eyes are way too close together. They just kind of smooshed right
Let's
in
hold
there.
the bowling.
All right.
Because we'll address that within the episode.
We're going to have to call Gypsy Rose to the stage to put the no
That
in
is not going to be the
cyberbullying.
first time she gets mentioned.
I guess not. Yeah, we'll have to see.
She's teaming up with Whitney. They're going to go on a anti-cyberbullying tour.
No cyberbullying.
All right, before we get into the episode, giant trigger warning.
Pretty much all of them.
Pretty much
many.
Imagine anything that could be triggering to a person. It was probably mentioned at some point during this reunion.
Would that be upsetting to you? Then maybe, consider that. So I think we had covered eating disorders, self-harm, sexual assault, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideations, drug abuse.
I forgot the drug abuse.
Yeah.
That may or may not be all of them.
I'm sure there's more. So there's a couple of different points here to be aware of.
We start off real light and fluffy, though, because we're finding out everybody who has showed up today, and they're keeping us guessing with whether or not Demi and her husband are going to be showing up.
Kind of, but they say outright from the start, as people are piling in to get ready for the reunion here, oh, Demi's not going to make it because she's going to Disneyland with her family. She just so happened to plan a family trip that could not be rescheduled right at the time of the reunion. Do you think that she knew about the date before she planned her Disneyland retreat here?
I think there are two things that may have happened. First of all, I think this tracks with the idea that this was not a pre-planned thing that they were committed to, that they were asked to do this afterwards. But I do think that she most likely got on the Mickey Mouse website and bought thousands of dollars worth of hotel stays and tickets so that she could get out of coming to the reunion. But I also liked my alternative theory that the other ladies didn't want her to be here, so they all conspired to say the only dates that they were available was the week or the day or whatever that she was going to be in Disneyland.
Well, it's still going to be a Disney princess experience for someone on the cast because Whitney has brought her tiara. It's not a headband. Don't call it a headband. It's a tiara.
I gotta say, though, I love it.
To just
I
show
love
up.
the delusion of it.
Yeah, to roll in.
Straight face. She didn't even acknowledge it.
No, she didn't mention it. Nobody asked about it. She just showed up like that. No questions asked.
Which one of the Queen's crowns is this one?
Excuse me?
The Queen's crowns.
Oh.
Did I not say that clearly? I think the Nick Vial.
Vial.
It's starting to rub off on me.
Okay. Millions. Well, we're picking up right where the episodes left off with Layla's dramatic ending. And I thought they were talking about the coochie roach. That was what came to mind for me with a dramatic ending.
The coochie roach scene round the world that we will never forget.
That was a finale in my mind. There was finality to that for Layla's storyline. But no, they were talking about the stuff that happened with Vanderpump Villa.
Her meeting with Marciano, where he revealed that things happened with Jessi, not just while they were in Italy, but afterward.
So as soon as we start getting into this conversation, it becomes very apparent very quickly. To me, this is why you don't skip out on the reunions, because now what you have is a bunch of stuff that you're saying or things that you have said to other people that are going to be taken out of context, played out of context, or presented with no other additional information available to it. And now you are not here to defend yourself. You're not able to provide any additional insight to that situation or that scenario.
Yeah, I did enjoy that this question should have been something that was difficult for Jessi to answer, but instead everyone automatically went to talking about Demi's involvement with Marciano.
Because it's a little suspicious, which makes me think that, yes, obviously there's stuff that comes to light later on in these episodes that they're holding on to, that it becomes very apparent who the problem is.
Well, so what do you think happened with Marciano, hearing what they said at the reunion now?
Well, so there's a spoiler kind of at the end with the trailer that they had, or at least from what I heard, was where it was sounding like there's a confrontation with Marciano where he's coming clean about things that he said about Jessi, that he was put up to this by someone. Boy, I wonder who that could be. We all know that Demi was trying to manufacture several different storylines, even back into season 1.
It comes across like the rest of the ladies who were there in Italy are under the impression that something inappropriate happened between Marciano and Demi and not Marciano and Jessi.
Right.
But Jessie's not sure what she can legally say about that.
Yeah, she's been served a couple of times now, so I don't know what I'm able to say at this point.
Legally from whom? From Hulu and because you're committed to another season? Or I think that was her soft launch of trying to talk about the cease and desist that Demi sent her,
yes.
But Nick didn't bite.
No, yeah, he didn't ask a follow-up for that one. And she did tie it back into, a lot of this will come to light in season 3, so I'm not at liberty to discuss that right now. I don't know why there were questions that were being thrown around, because then, of course, they have to start asking Whitney, because Whitney is BFFs with Demi. She was talking to her on the phone before she came out here.
This is a new development that
they
they're
are
besties.
So tight now, obviously, because they have a common enemy in Taylor. And
pretty much the rest of MomTok.
Pretty much just MomTok in general.
I guess if you get, well, none of them actually got kicked out of MomTok. They decided to leave.
They quit.
So if you decide to quit MomTok and then regret your decision, you then become part of Whitney's new friend group.
Whitney and Demi are the heads of that club over there. But I love how they were trying to throw this back to Jessi of, well, what did Demi ever do to you, Jessi? And Jessi was like, she tried to get me kicked off the show, for starters. She damaged my business. She tried to pick
my pockets. She tried to insult the actual business that I run outside of this and get me kicked off the show. So I think all of those things were pretty bad.
Not so good.
Not really the behavior of a friend.
Whitney didn't remember any of that stuff, though. So she was a little quick to defend Demi. And so maybe there's some regret tied in there now, too. But then we're noticing also there's no wedding ring on Jessi's finger. And then I keep forgetting that she's 32 years old because she looks like she's 55.
Look, it's rough.
It's been a rough 32.
I'm just going to say they need to reevaluate the ketamine use, what did they give them? The laughing gas when they're going to get Botox, just all of it. The amount of, I don't know if the soda's going to help or hurt. Is it preserving things?
No, I don't think so.
But she is really aging herself.
It's tough out here. I mean, well, she's getting a lot of Darcy face, Silva face.
Too much work, too much fillers. That's what starts to happen.
And I think that's why I'm associating her then as like the third Silva twin. So then it's like putting them all in the same age bracket mentally for me.
She does look at least 10 years older than her actual age.
That's
said
rough.
With love, Jessi. I think there's room for improvement, and the improvement is just do less.
Let it be. Let it be. Why did we go back to the start of MomTok? Why did we... Is this a season 1?
Where are you going? Are you skipping over the text that she revealed?
Oh, the texts? She got receipts? Or which part was that? Was that this part or was that later?
Was right in the opening where she shared texts with Demi and Marciano.
Oh.
The oysters.
I think the note that I had was just Marciano be fucking. So that might be...
Maybe you need to be a little bit more specific next time. I actually have the emojis. The oyster emoji, the eggplant emoji, and the water droplets. And to that I say, I need to step up my emoji usage. Because I would never have thought to put these 3 icons together.
Well, the whole basis of the conversation is they're trying to provide evidence of the flirtation that was going on between Demi and Marciano with their text messages, because then she's texting him about oysters. They're having oysters, but she can't think about eating oysters without correlating that to swallowing cum.
Nick was not sure if he could say that on Hulu.
They're not bleeping anything.
It took him a minute.
Let it go, man.
There was a very long pause, and then he finally said it. Did you feel like it was inappropriate?
Yeah, I would say that was probably inappropriate conversation. And then if that's the stuff that's happening via text, what were they doing in person?
In a group text, too.
Oh, that was a group text?
How did they have her texts? Unless she sent a screenshot and somebody saved it.
Maybe screenshot.
Guys, you guys need to start using Signal or something. You need that, Snapchat, something where the evidence is disappearing quickly, where you're notified if somebody's taking screenshots. Because this is not the first receipt that's produced within this single reunion.
Not the first time, not the last time.
Even though Demi isn't here, like you said, Whitney seems to be on a mission to defend her, to be her mouthpiece at this reunion.
Well, that was what she instructed her to do before Whitney came out on stage here. Demi had to make sure, hey, if they ask you anything, just say you got to go talk to Demi about that. So
that's
Whitney's
not what
try
she's
to do
doing,
that.
though.
That's not really what it is. Well, she did say she wasn't going to speak for her at some points, but then she would go into an answer about how she felt about something.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak for her, but I am going to say you guys are really mean to Demi.
But I'll speak about, like, around her, not for her.
Although I don't think she would say anything different. Yeah, good point, though. Whitney has really forgotten the fact that Demi was not her biggest fan either.
No, they did not start off as friends, and I don't think they even ended season 2 as friends, technically. It's just they're in the same spot where it was kind of on the outsides of MomTok.
I think the formula for this show is that if you're going to have problems with someone, it needs to be with one individual person. As soon as it blows up into it's the entire group, that's when you risk becoming a Whitney or a Demi.
Well, I think the problem with Demi is that she was seeing herself as the leader of MomTok. She was finding herself in these circumstances where she was shitting on Taylor because people were annoyed with Taylor, and then she kept running with that even when people were over it. So then you're still the one that's harping on it about how awful Taylor is and how horrible she treats everyone, but you're the only one who's still clinging to that at that point because everyone else has made peace with Taylor and they're kind of over it.
I really think that's the only thing that Whitney has to talk about other than now inserting herself into the drama between the other girls and Demi to be relevant.
Well, because Demi was doing it too, because at the dinner when they were in Louisiana, Demi was starting a whole campaign trying to get everyone rallied against her. And then I think people were agreeing with Demi that, yeah, Taylor's kind of problematic or whatever. She didn't treat us very well with that CMA hate post that went out there, and she's not sorry about it. So yeah, agree. That was kind of dickish or whatever. But I think most people are agreeing with Demi just so that she'll stop talking for the most part.
She is annoying.
Leave it alone.
If she was here, she would have talked for 90% of this episode.
She would have been all over the place. It would have been her and Taylor talking over each other, arguing, bickering back and forth. So it probably was for the best that Demi didn't show up to this reunion, but also at the detriment of you don't get your chance for rebuttal. You don't get to have a conversation. You get to have a snippet of an interview dropped in at a time where you probably wouldn't be bringing these things up at this point in the conversation or talking about things in the way that you were talking about it because that was a completely separate conversation. So things get kind of pulled out of context. It makes you look bad.
Yeah, but you know right now, as we're literally recording this, that she is probably online typing away rants and attacking them on TikTok.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it's happening.
She's in the comments. Look for her. So you want to go back to the beginning of MomTok because...
This is a season 1 reunion, I guess, because a lot of the unseen footage that they were showing us was stuff from season 1. Why are you bringing this up? Why are you showing me storylines that you didn't introduce on the show? I guess that's interesting.
Don't make this an hour and 40 minutes then.
Yeah,
cut this down to a nice 59 minutes.
It was a little bloated, you know?
Well, Taylor does explain exactly why she exposed the swinging scandal, which, you know, even though we did see season 1, they really didn't give us all the details of the swinging scandal that we wanted.
Not in the way that we were expecting.
And we're not even really getting them here, but I am appreciating that we're getting to know more. Maybe by season 6, we'll have all the details of the swinging scandal.
Pretty good understanding. Well, it seemed like there were accusations that were flying around that Taylor was stealing her friend's husband, Miranda's husband at the time. And so Taylor figured, well, those are rumors that are coming out. It was this impulsive thing, very much like the post that she did with the CMAs, where she got upset about something, she got petty about something, went online with it real quick because she jumped on a live and started ranting about how everybody in this group soft swings and everybody's sleeping with each other. So I don't know why it's such a big deal for me to go around and have extramarital affairs when everybody else is judging me for stuff that they're doing too.
Can I give a hot take though?
Okay.
I don't know if you're prepared for it. I'm kind of on her side with this. Because everyone else involved was doing the same things until she overstepped a boundary.
The problem was, it was all in the basis of parties and group gathering things that were happening with the soft swinging. Nobody was agreeing to open relationship things that were singular, one-off things, which that was what was the difference, I guess.
Well, I get that, but if you're going to then go talk shit behind my back and tell everyone that I'm stealing my best friend's husband and leave out the entire part of the story where everybody else is involved, swinging with each other,
where everybody else is involved, yes, it makes Taylor look like the worst person in that. Yes, so that part does make sense, but also I think she's still using it as a deflection for she messed up. She did something that she wasn't supposed to do as part of that system.
She does take accountability for what she did.
She does now. I don't know if she was then, because this seemed like more of a reactionary throw you all under the bus now, because if I'm going to get dragged, I'm bringing you all with me.
Yeah, I guess what I would say, though, is did you guys expect this to go any other way? Did you think this was just going to end happily and everyone would have gotten their jollies and at the end of the day they went home and one day you would just all decide, man, let's not do this anymore?
I think that was the general consensus that they all reached, was that we were all wildly inexperienced with open relationships. So looking back on it, it was pretty irresponsible all around, and that's why it kind of blew up.
At one point she was like, you were sucking my husband's dick, to whoever else was talking shit. Did you notice every time that Taylor talked about anything sexual, all of the other women looked horrified?
Well, these aren't people who were involved in it for the most part. I think Miranda was original. Whitney was original, but was she part of the swinging? Who would want to swing with Whitney?
I forgot Miranda was even here.
She was a doormat for most of this.
She didn't say anything.
No, she chimed in here and there, and then that was what they were hinting at. Oh, are you officially back in MomTok? Because, hey, she's here. She's part of the reunion, so I guess that means something, right? She's still not even fully committing to being back in the group. She's waiting for the checks to clear for season 3, is what it sounds like, more than anything.
I don't know if I'd be coming back after I saw the way this all went down, especially if people are making up shit about other people.
I think I'm good. Yeah, just pop in for season 2, get people curious, confirm some things, and then just grab a handful of popcorn shrimp and blow out of there.
Can I be a friend of? Is that an option on this show?
Have we set up the structure for this yet? Can I be a friend of Whitney? I know Whitney's desperate for friends. She is really...
It's an easy way to get an open slot.
Trying her best here.
Let's talk about the bullying.
The bullying.
Mikayla gets confronted about why she hates Whitney. Have you seen the stuff that she has been posting online?
No. I mean, just from the stuff that they showed in season 2.
It's still going on.
Oh, she's still doing this?
Where they're going back and forth. Whitney will make a video and then Mikayla will post something mocking it. It has not ended. I guess that is bullying. Yeah. I don't have the endurance for that kind of commitment to hatred to another person.
I mean, I have that level of pettiness for sure, but I don't know if I could keep it going for this long.
Maybe she could channel it into Gypsy Rose, since we're going to talk about
the no bullying,
bringing attention to cyberbullying.
Anti-bull.
Maybe she could channel it all that direction.
I guess it makes sense. Well, like, Mikayla thought that they had cleared stuff up because they had a blow up in their relationship. No, I'm talking like prior to...
In season 1.
In this, because again, this is a season 1 reunion, more than a season 2 reunion, for sure. So we're talking about stuff that happened. I guess there was some Jay-Z party, Jizz hair party that...
Yeah, they referenced that and then didn't remind us what happened.
Didn't talk about it.
How many years has it been since we fucking watched that episode?
It's been so long. So Mikayla was under the impression that her and Whitney had sort of hashed things out, were on the road back to friendship, and then a day or two after a big blow up at that party, Whitney goes and unfollows everybody. The unfollowing happens. And so that's like scorched earth, end of the world for Mikayla, where I don't trust Whitney anymore. This is a big problem. How are we going to work through this? What's the next step here? So she just doesn't trust Whitney anymore. And then when Whitney comes rolling back around through MomTok, it's weird. It's a weird dynamic to just try to reinsert yourself into this group.
I do get that she was really pissed that Whitney expected the entire group to I feel like, make everything that was going on in their lives go to the background while they all focused on coming to her aid after she found out about Connor's porn addiction.
Well, it's just interesting where every single person in this group, they all simultaneously feel that no one supports them, even though the entire basis of this group is women supporting women, allegedly, and having this friend-based support system going through things together. It doesn't seem like that's kind of conveying through the actual practical message of what we're seeing happen.
I would be upset if I had a chronic illness and I was going through a really, really, really rough time in my life related to that. And every time I talk to my friend, all they want to talk about is their own problems. I get that they're going through something too, but just a reciprocal, how are you doing, I think may have helped here.
Well, and then to look back in hindsight too and say, nobody was there for me. The Amy approach in 1,000-Pound Sisters, where I don't have siblings, nobody cares about me, and you never did, when very clearly there was all this evidence of there was support, there were people reaching out to you. If you were turning away from that or shying away from that, and you weren't taking them up on that support, then that's kind of on you. But no, we have to rewrite this. Whitney falls into kind of that perpetual victim thing, but then that's when she starts throwing around the bullying accusations, and it's like, that's not helping with this other perpetual victim scenario that you found yourself in.
She has a real issue with taking accountability, where she could say, hey, I know, I understand what it is to go through something really rough in life, and I'm sorry that I was really preoccupied with myself and my own situation. I didn't realize how hard of a time it was for you, and now I get that. But no, every opportunity that she has to apologize to someone, she doubles down on her original position.
It becomes dueling invalidation, because you invalidated me, but then they're saying, okay, well then I wasn't getting anything from you for that, and then I was invalidated because then you weren't there to support me for this, even though I was there for you, and now you're telling me I wasn't, so it just becomes everybody pointing fingers at each other.
Yeah, I don't know where I stand on her, because Whitney doesn't irk me all the time, but I do think she's extremely emotionally immature.
She bothers me, yeah. Like, I wouldn't be able to spend any time with her at all.
Well, I think they would be fine if there was no conflict in the relationship. But the minute something difficult comes up or there has to be a hard conversation, that's probably the end of every one of her friendships.
Yeah.
8 minutes, pretty much of the episode dedicated to talking about coffee enemas.
Mikayla's coffee enemas specifically. But they have to break up. There's a lot of serious stuff that we were saying. It's just things that kind of get sprinkled in. So they have to have these lighthearted moments that get edited in, spliced in as part of this here, little detours that we go on.
I gotta tell you, we need a representative from the LDS church or from a fundamentalist sect on Sister Wives. We need somebody to come to these reunions and give us real answers on whether or not certain things are okay or not. Because they never know the answer, the people who are on the show.
Well, they find all the loopholes for the things that they know that they're not supposed to do. And then they come up with, well, there's all these new things, though. Because if we're not allowed to drink coffee, but now there's this new thing where you can put coffee up your ass.
Where do we fall? What's the church's stance on that?
The Bible didn't say, no, you can't put coffee in your ass. So, therefore,
I feel like that's where a little bit of personal judgment and accountability comes into play, that you're going to have to discern whether or not that seems like something that would have been okay had it been addressed.
Well, because then they're also talking about the poop hole loophole, because if you're talking about putting coffee up your butt, there's other stuff that can go up your butt too.
And we don't have a full list
of prohibited
items.
Well, yeah, it protects your purity, because they didn't say specifically no butt stuff in the Bible. Can you find me the red letter text where Jesus said no butt stuff? No, you can't, because he didn't say it.
Well, let's get Dakota to come out on stage.
Speaking of butt stuff, yeah, let's get Dakota out here. I thought it was hilarious. They brought him out as the only husband. So all the other husbands are still corralled backstage.
Well, this is the boyfriend. They have to separate him. Is he the boyfriend? That's the question.
Yeah, not really.
The toxic ex-baby daddy
But they just send him out there solo. He's flying solo. He is Lonely Island, table of one.
I thought he looked worried.
He was nervous.
It's him and all these other women who have a lot of reasons to dislike him. And Nick, who makes it very clear the instant that Dakota sits down that he would prefer to see Taylor and Dakota work things out and be together.
Because he sees there's so much love here. Love here. And they care about each other. I don't think that anybody is saying that they don't care about each other. I think what we're all saying is that this is a toxic combination. And you have to see that even though you love somebody or care for somebody, the way that you trigger each other and set each other off repeatedly and constantly, that's the unhealthy dynamic.
Yeah, and I think Taylor has to ask herself at this point, the betrayal that happened with Dakota lying to her about the cheating, even though she felt like it was going on, and then feeling like she was gaslit through it all, and then discovering it only because he was essentially backed into the corner and this was all going to come out anyway.
Well, Taylor was like the bread and the sex sandwich for Dakota because he banged Taylor, and then the next day he went and banged Jenna, and then the next day he banged Taylor again. So she's just kind of lumped in there with
holding it all together.
The rest of the body count.
Do you want to be with someone who did something like that to you? Could you ever trust them again? Because it's kind of feeling like the answer is no, in which case you should stop the back and forth.
Well, this is where it's hard because then I think there are times, because obviously you have Dakota saying some very scary things too, where he's talking about his former drug addiction, how he was replacing heroin with sex in some ways, where he was trying to chase these endorphin rushes that he used to get. So like that's all really scary stuff in terms of the way that he's describing this and his rationale and logic for the decision-making process that he found himself in. But then you kind of get, there's this accountability that's happening from both of them where they're saying, I didn't treat my partner right in this relationship at all. That's the problem. But then I think they're missing the point where Taylor is almost validated in the way of treating Dakota terribly because he did all those terrible things. So she is right to treat him.
Well, she had the
bad.
Intuition that it was happening.
Yes.
And then she found out it was in fact happening.
So then she feels like she's not doing something wrong by mistreating Dakota.
No, but you're doing something wrong for yourself.
Oh yeah, I agree. And then I think secretly there are probably things going on with Dakota where he feels like he doesn't deserve to be treated well. So then that kind of plays into this.
There are two people who need to spend a lot of time in therapy alone. And sometimes you learn a lesson coming out of a relationship. Like it's very nice that the both of them can look back at it and say, I didn't treat my partner well. That doesn't mean you have to get back with that person because you acknowledge that behavior wasn't right.
And now you're trying to make up for it again, but then you're falling into the same things.
You just take that into your future relationships as a learning.
Because you still have all of that reaction to the original wrongdoing that happened here too. So if you're going to try to start fresh, start new, you're still carrying all of that previous baggage too now. So they can't decide if they're together, if they're not. The photographs that we saw at the reunion, based on what they're posting on social media, it seems like they're more together than not from the way that they're...
Or at least at some points in the day, they're together in some ways.
But then Taylor seems to be very specific that no, they are not in a relationship.
Right, they're not in a relationship, but they're still hooking up with one another.
Sometimes we hook up, you know? Yeah, it seems like that's a regular thing. But someone, please, make a decision one way or the other.
No, there's no decision. It's just stop hooking up. Just co-parent the baby together and go to therapy. And maybe in the future, you will have each worked through your own issues and can have a relationship that is mature. But it's not happening now. Demi's not here. Too bad. Reminder, you went on Nick's podcast and they recorded every moment of it. And since you're not here today to share your story, we're going to play all the snippets where you talked about other people.
She has the Disneyland excuse, but that does not make her immune to the podcast out of context edit show that is going to happen here with the clips that they're dropping on us. There's a lot of shots fired at Taylor for the most part here when we get started. She also kind of shits on Jessi a little bit, a lot of it.
A lot of it shitting on Jessi.
There's a coffee enema just pouring about.
I did like that the rest of the group backed Taylor, and they were like, Taylor technically started MomTok, and when it came time for contract negotiations, even she was like, I don't think that I deserve any more money.
I think we're good. Like, we all deserve an increase, sure, but not me personally. And then compare and contrast that with Demi's contract negotiations for season 2, which were cutthroat to say the least, where she was suggesting boot Jessi off because she already has a job and a successful business. She doesn't need the money from the show. That's how you can pay me more.
Cut the fat.
The general sentiment, I think, for this segment was that Demi's ego is too big for this show now. And that was why she got overinflated with thinking that she was the voice of MomTok, the voice of reason, but people were just quietly agreeing with her so that she would leave them alone at dinners.
Do you think she's really at Disneyland, or is she auditioning for a future season of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City?
Or Dancing with the Stars. She didn't get it.
Yeah, I guess everybody's really busy. They did mention multiple people auditioned, but then they only told us of 2. But it sounded like more than 2.
2 who really wanted it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The comparing and contrasting, though, of Demi versus Taylor, I think it was the who takes accountability better, because obviously Demi she's the type of person who she can't let anything go. She doesn't really own up to stuff. Taylor will at least admit when she does something petty or something out of spite. She does it in that moment because she feels right in it. And then she'll look at it later with context and say, yeah, I was being a dick. And so that's why, even though she does these terrible things, people are able to forgive her and move past it because she does own up to stuff. But to me, she just kind of stays with that, and you cannot change her mind.
And we see her doing it in the interview with Nick, where she's doubling down on things and he's trying to call her out. Like, that doesn't make sense. Can you understand how someone would feel this way about what you said? No. No, because that doesn't work with my narrative.
It makes me look bad, and I don't want that to happen. So then also it becomes a contest because Demi's not here to argue with Taylor about who takes accountability better. So we're going to have Whitney argue with Taylor about who takes accountability better.
And I loved this because now we're going to turn it on you, bitch. If you're going to open your mouth and get yourself involved, how about you? How do you think you handle accountability? Because you're another one with a bad track record.
Whitney is treating this like her annual review.
Does she meet all expectations or exceed? She thinks she exceeds.
She thinks she's marking herself as exceeds all expectations when she is at meets expectations or needs improvement.
Needs improvement
at best.
In the area of accountability, especially.
Yes, definitely.
I was hoping this would teach her to just don't get involved. Don't fight other people's battles for them anymore, because we'll turn it back on you. There's plenty of material to talk about with you.
And I secretly hope that this would be the way that when we were talking about the Sister Wives reunion format of if it gets too intense where Cody and Robin would try to do something where they say, no, we're not going to be involved in it. Well, just so you know, we're going to be playing clips of things that you say completely out of context then. And then they're just going to provide the narrative for this. You're going to let everyone else who's showing up to the reunion here speak on it. And then you're not going to be able to tell your side of the story.
Yeah, I feel like the thing that made this so good, though, was that she thought that she was in a safe space having a one-on-one conversation with Nick. And there was no one else to hold her accountable aside from whatever he said to her. And she was controlling the narrative.
Well, what's crazy is then Demi is also accusing Taylor of manipulating narratives and gaslighting people, making people seem crazy, because then Demi's saying that she's the victim of Taylor turning her online audience against her. And so with Taylor's cult following of bullies, which, I mean, I guess that's what she's kind of throwing out here. When Taylor's so quick to take stuff online, that's because Taylor's a horrible person and she sends all these people after me.
That's just rich, because she was literally in people's comments fighting with randos that she's never met before. So you're in the comments arguing with people.
Well, and then if you're talking about manipulating narratives to make people seem crazy, Jen Affleck has a lot to talk about on that subject later, but she's not out here yet because she is fully pregnant, and so she's still backstage.
Well, she wasn't here for the majority of the season.
That too.
I also missed that she wasn't on stage. I didn't realize Miranda was there, and I thought Jen was there and just didn't clock her.
They kind of swapped a few people around here and there, but at this point, they've only added Dakota. So he's the only addition right now.
Which he had to sit through the entire segment where they played the clips of Demi and everybody talked about her, and he had nothing to contribute. He just sat there awkwardly.
It seemed like they should have brought him out with the husbands, not as
he
part of
didn't need
this
his
segment.
own segment.
He wasn't like a big standalone reason enough. Maybe they just didn't want the other guys jumping in to defend him or something. Because
I think it
like
tells you that the show thinks that Taylor and Dakota are the stars of the show.
That's where the emphasis is in the storyline.
Like
here.
they're the A storyline, everyone else is the B storyline.
Yeah. Well, the rest of the DadTok guys do make their way out to the stage. They are seated on stools behind the wives, which made me uncomfortable.
Can we stop talking about DadTok?
You think DadTok's not going to survive this?
Well, they just jumped on this after season 1 so that they could create their own stream of income, because now most of them are staying home while their wives are the ones out doing everything, and they're getting a piece of the TikTok creator fund.
They're trying their best, yeah.
There seems to be a lot less drama in DadTok.
Seems to be.
All right, this is where, again, if you did not heed the trigger warnings and you've been listening and thinking,
not so
this
bad.
isn't so bad.
Yeah.
No, this is the point where you're going to want to stop listening.
This is where I got upset initially when they brought this up, because I thought we were going to be talking about, it was mostly Connor's porn addiction. So Whitney's husband, Connor, and his porn addiction stuff, which that was, again, season 1 storyline. Why are we talking about this? Well, it turns out that there's more to that.
Which, again, I got to tell you, it's been so long since we watched that I was confused if this was new information or
They
not.
didn't clearly address it at the time, and now we know why, because they were kind of talking around. There was this whole other element to Connor's story where there is a history of sexual assault as well.
This was really brave of Connor to come out and talk about the fact that he was raped as a child and how that's played into a lot of the things that he's struggled with. And he's been treated really poorly online. I feel like of all of the guys related to DadTok or in DadTok, not the guy's married to women in MomTok. I'm canceling DadTok. It's
There you
really
go.
not that important.
Okay.
This entire segment is super emotional.
I'm going to try to be sensitive about the way that I'm going to talk about this, okay?
Oh,
because
no.
this is triggering. But like, I don't like when this is a response to Connor was in the midst of addressing porn addiction and an online dating profile, or multiple online dating profiles, behind Whitney's back. So that was his external validation that he was seeking in the relationship, which he took accountability for at that time. Then it comes out where this was the reason.
I don't know that he's saying this was the reason. I think it's revealing that there was something that he's learned about himself that he didn't necessarily remember originally.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's
through doing therapy.
He's rooting the impulses and the decision making that happened there to this traumatic experience. I think maybe that's why they didn't publicize it in season 1.
Do you feel like Hulu or production could have done a better job of giving more time to dedicating more time to explaining this thoroughly rather than brushing it into a reunion and relating it back to all the struggles that they had in season 1?
I think I'm understanding why they probably didn't want to navigate a lot of that on camera, because it is very complex. It is very complicated. I don't know if more time dedicated to it would have fixed it. I think what I'm saying is like just the way that it comes up and the timing and the reasoning of why it's being discussed in this platform the way that it is, that's what throws me off. It seems like they've
presented it in a way of, well, here's why.
Yeah, it's like, this is the reason. That's why I did that bad thing.
Even though that's not necessarily what he's saying.
No.
But that's how it came across
I don't
on
like
the
when the
show.
timing, like when the timing correlates in that way. So that's the part that made me uncomfortable about it, I think. Maybe that was just me.
I think the thing that's important to understand is that someone who's experienced a sexual trauma, especially as a child, that as they're growing up and maturing, exploring your sexuality can be very confusing and uncomfortable, and how someone might turn to porn to do that in a way that maybe feels more safe and comfortable to them.
Okay, so I think maybe that's the part that I don't like then, is because then they're still demonizing the porn addiction too, of like this thing that's wrong with Connor.
Well, I'll say it's not a thing wrong with Connor. It is a very big issue within the Mormon community. So there's layer on top of layer of complexity here.
Yeah. No more complex than Jen and Zach Affleck's family tree, though, right?
They bring them out, and the first question is about being related to Ben Affleck, which Jen needs to just give up on. Just admit, either you thought it was a joke and you thought it was humorous, so you ran with it on camera, or you're really so dumb that you thought it was true.
Okay, she said it again at the reunion, which Zach looked physically distraught when she started mentioning it again. Because I don't know, are we leaving off that we've confirmed that Zach is not related, but Jen could be related? But why would Jen be related to Ben Affleck when the man who shares his last name isn't related to him? So
you never know. Get them on Find Your Roots.
What is she talking about?
Maybe next season we can have Ben Affleck show up to do a DNA test, and they could see if they're at all related. Just do one for all three of them.
I really don't want to do that.
Really?
No,
I think that'd be fun.
I don't think we need that. We don't have time for that.
Well, we started out with a light, humorous discussion. Now, Jen, how are you doing?
Well, I seem to be struggling a lot with prenatal depression.
Look, Jen was going through something really dark.
She had the real talk. Yeah, there was, suicidal ideations. She was suffering with the depression there. She was struggling.
I kind of think she was depressed prior to getting pregnant.
And then
it continued.
Well, it just added to it, because then you feel guilty, or like you feel bad about bringing another kid into this now not great dynamic that you have with your relationship with your husband. It's all very uncertain. So I think there was probably some guilt that was mixed in there too. That just adds to the depression.
Also, how hard must it be? Her relationship with Zach was not in a good place. And then you have all of your friends telling you how shitty your husband is. And you just found out you're pregnant and decided that you're going to get back together. But let's be real. I think a big piece of that is that she's pregnant.
Well, it sounds like they're putting in the work. They're doing 9 hours of therapy per week between their own personal therapy, shared couples therapy, their K-hole therapy.
Hopefully the K-hole therapy is a small portion of that time.
Well, I was going to say either that or a longer portion of that time, like spread it out a little bit more.
All right. For anyone who's going to guess that, I can understand that ketamine therapy can be very helpful to some people.
I don't know if it's going to fix the...
I obviously...
The genetic
Well, I guess the
displacement.
ketamine, probably the pregnancy...
Oh, you can't do
probably
that.
stop that.
Yeah, probably. I don't know what the regulations are. I'm not a parent.
Also, we're not in Utah, and things seem a little fast and loose with the drugs over there.
Give you laughing gas just to put in your swig order at the drive-thru. What it's sounding like.
Play another clip of Demi.
Yeah, we've got plenty of out-of-context clips to just drop in at the most inopportune time.
You know, now that we know that you were struggling with one of the most difficult, darkest times of your life, let's get Demi's take on whether or not that was really what was going on.
Because I think at this point, if Demi were here at the reunion, she would jump in and just completely pummel Jen while she's down and continue to berate her and talk about how terrible she is. No, obviously she wouldn't do that, but we absolutely do have a clip of her doing that on the podcast. Roll that clip.
She's questioning whether that's really what Jen's going through. She's talking about the apology video that Jen sent them being very calculated.
She's running away from her issues. She's not addressing things.
She was upset that Jen, who's going through prenatal depression, didn't take the time out of her day to show up at her Christmas party to confront issues with other people in person.
Not the top of the priority list, especially when you've made it clear, hey, I'm not filming for the rest of the season, basically.
But she's acting like that was her extending an olive branch to Jen.
And it was rejected outright.
No, that was you trying to create more drama at your Christmas party.
I liked that Jen did call out directly to who's running from issues at this point, because I'm looking around the room and there's only one person who's not here, and it's Demi.
I'm going to say that was the slam dunk of the episode.
That was pretty nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
You got her on that one.
That was
she
good.
She ain't here and you are.
Yeah.
Also, everyone else, again, looks absolutely disgusted by what Demi said in those clips after hearing everything Jen was going through.
Well, I think it's as people are talking to each other now more about, like, they were taking Demi at her word for a lot of different things, because then that was some of the stuff where Zach was hearing some of the stuff that Demi was saying about Jessi during the contract negotiations. And he started questioning, okay, if that's what she's saying about one of her best friends, what do you think she's saying about you, Jen?
Say what you want about Zach, but he's good at girl drama.
He has a read on it.
Yeah, he's seeing what's going on here. And Brett and Demi have a conversation on camera with Zach and Jen about what happened in Italy. And Demi brings up something about being a victim, which they didn't get into within the reunion, but we do know that she made allegations against Marciano when they were at Vanderpump Villas.
Just the one.
Singular.
Yeah.
One villa. Maybe they'll expand to 2 next season.
Maybe. But no, this was like a follow-up call that after they had filmed, Demi and Brett called Jen and Zach and were like, hey, we need to get our story straight. And so that threw up a red flag for Zach, because he knows Demi's been talking shit about Jessi. I don't know what this conversation's going to be like. So he hits record to cover their asses, essentially, here.
And they play it, but it was really hard to kind of understand what was happening because we weren't there for the original conversation. They didn't play it for us. And now we're getting them talking about something partway through.
Guess what it is? It's Demi manufacturing storylines where she's telling Jen, hey, if they ask you about this, tell them this is what happened. So she's steering Jen to describe exactly what sort of scenario she wants her to describe. And that's how we're going to leave it. It's just don't address it, steer away from this, and answer it this way if they ask you about it.
Okay, this was fascinating. This could have been 45 minutes of the tell-all. I wanted to know more about it because we know that the whole time Jen has been sitting on what she knows happened in Italy. And she has been wanting to bring up on camera that Demi was inappropriate in her conversations, or I don't know if she wants to say actions with Marciano.
And this was where the disagreement then happened between Jen and Demi, where Jen was not agreeing to have those scripted answers and go that route to cover for Demi, essentially. So that's when she gets hit with the cease and desist. So that ties in to all these other elements that we've heard about from this season too.
We never have gotten actual confirmation on if there was a real cease and desist or if she just threatened everyone that she would send one to them. Either way, that's the extent that you're willing to go to make sure that people feel like they're not able to talk about certain things on camera.
Well, and this ties back again directly to Demi's allegations against Taylor, where Taylor does all these things to manipulate storylines, to gaslight people and to confuse them and to get them to agree with her version of events. And we see that happening very directly as what Demi is doing. So is that just one of those accusations that's actually a form of projection because she sees these behaviors from Taylor, but it's actually stuff that she's doing?
Who knows, but I have a very strong opinion about when they write contracts for reality TV shows, they should make sure there's a clause where the cast are not allowed to sue each other. Because something similar happened on Teen Mom.
Well, it's not for like defamation or for,
right. That's where it gets into the area that they go after each other for.
And that they shouldn't be able to have a cease and desist or like prevent them, no gag order type
Right,
things.
that you can't talk about specific things on a reality show that you guys both agreed to go on.
Seems like that should be a loophole or like a superseding agreement as part of your contract with the filming entity or the production company that you're working with for that.
Because it just leads to more bullshit like this when there's people who want to manufacture storylines or control the narrative, and this is a way that they can do that.
My favorite part, though, was when Whitney was asked about her thoughts on this whole Demi and Jen interaction here. And Whitney's like, yeah, that's strange, because to call someone and tell them how to answer things and giving them instructions like that, that's so odd. And that would be really off-putting. That would throw me for a loop if that happened to me personally. And then they flash back to before Whitney came out on stage, she's on the phone with Demi, and Demi is telling her how to answer things. That it literally happened to her right before they started filming this.
Well, and she's been doing it the entire time where she's like, well, you can ask Demi about that. Like, I can't really answer that. But also, this is how Demi probably feels about it.
So for her to act like that was such an outlandish claim from Jen, even though we did hear the audio recording and it's all these people who are having this conversation, it's very clearly who's involved there, but couldn't wrap her mind around that one.
Whitney looked really stupid the entire tell-all.
She was goofing.
Yeah, stop.
Not just because of the tiara.
Stop being her representative. Jay-Z Styles gets brought up again. Do we care about this? I mean,
not really.
One of the damning things for Jessi is that, you're talking about how you did Layla's hair, and we saw the hair. We saw the hair.
Oh, there was, that one
Remember
date
the
that she was on?
The extensions?
Yeah.
It was bad. And what I've heard is that people are saying, well, Jessi's hair always looks good because she takes care of all of the hair correctly, and that the other girls clearly aren't doing that. So then when they put everything in, it looks not good.
You need a glam squad that goes with the free product.
At this point, I think Jessi should get together with them on a weekly basis. Whatever the care routine needs to be, she needs to make sure they're doing it, because they are now a representative of her work. And the reviews have not been good.
And if this is something that you cannot be held responsible for, then you will no longer be receiving product from me. That's not something I want to be associated with. But then there's also things that are being twisted as well, because then Demi is spreading rumors and talking about things that other people have said to her. So that was what she was trying to help Taylor out by having her avoid this issue. Don't go to Jess for color specifically, because there were other people who were upset about their color, when actually Layla said, I don't like blonde, and she was meaning just in general. She went with blonde.
She didn't like how she looked blonde.
She didn't like that look. So not that she didn't like the color because of how it was applied or anything. It was just she didn't like that style that she had chosen, so then she went with something else in the future. So
not that diabolical.
Not the intention, not the same meaning that Demi is then telling Taylor.
Right, which was that they were devastated that she fucked up their hair, so you shouldn't go there or you will look terrible too.
Don't do it. She sucks at color. So is that a bully or is that a bully tendency? Because I think that's the...
Bully.
That's the semantics that Whitney gets caught up in now. She was very quick to call Jessi and Mikayla bullies about 20 minutes ago, but she doesn't like to throw around that word bully when it comes to her new friend, Demi.
It's kind of like when people call me, Whitney, a narcissist. I'm not a narcissist, but I have narcissistic tendencies.
I have narcissistic traits, but I've never been diagnosed with NPD.
I don't even know how to hard shift into the next section.
This is just all the other heavy stuff that they had to round out this episode with.
Layla. Okay, we're not getting enough about Layla, because what they gave us as part of this season was the coochie roach and that she's never had an orgasm.
And then she was also dating that weird guy.
I don't remember his name. Howdy Doody. That's a real old reference for some of you who may get it.
Cam. Was it Cam?
Oh, that sounds right.
Maybe.
Did Cam give her the big O? That was a big question.
Oh, Probably not. I don't think so.
He didn't look capable of it to me.
No. He looks like a malnourished skateboarder.
And we got her a little bit more with the Marciano stuff since she was the one to meet up with him. But we're finding out that Layla has filmed other stuff on camera about real shit going on in her life that they have not shown us until now. She struggles with body dysmorphia and having an eating disorder and self-harm.
Has a history of self-harm, depression, anxiety. So all these things that are very real for her. But why are we not seeing this stuff until now? So I don't know if it's just things that were deemed as didn't fit the tone of the show, I guess, or that they didn't really tie in with other storylines. So they just kind of breeze by them.
I'm not liking that so many people on the show are going through a lot of intense stuff. And we're going to pretend that's not happening and focus on dumb shit like somebody cutting out MomTok letters from cheese.
Yes, because I think that adds to the superficial perception of the cast, because it is seen as these are women who are getting through the struggles of life together. And then from the outside looking in, if you're just looking at the MomTok videos on TikTok, what fucking struggles are we talking about here? Well, clearly there are some very real underlying issues here
that are relatable to a lot of people.
That then, yeah, correlates to that, but we're not addressing that. So it's not part of this. So now being thrown in as an afterthought as part of a reunion special seems like it's not really the respectful platform that they're kind of all patting themselves on the back for at this point.
Like Hulu.
Hulu in general, yeah.
Yeah, for addressing these things. Because they do the same thing with Mikayla. We have been talking about multiple experiences with sexual trauma in this episode. We know that Mikayla talked about her own experience on the show this season. They don't talk about it until the very end of the reunion.
So maybe that was an editing thing too, because she was talking about how Connor was the person who encouraged her, Mikayla, to go to therapy. And that was when her and Whitney have an awkward hug that they're kind of forced to do. So maybe they didn't want to do that as part of that segment. And so with the hug, that kind of made it a little more of like a final moment.
Maybe she needed a minute to kind of, everyone needed to collect themselves after Connor talked. So maybe they decided to come back to that. But again, really interesting to talk about how trauma can be related to chronic illness. I just think there's so many more interesting things that they could be talking about on the show.
Well, and deeper, meaningful things, yes.
Yeah.
Instead of slut-shaming Taylor or...
Yeah, maybe we don't need to see her dad do that again.
Yeah, I don't need to see her parents ever again. And then probably her sister either.
Just some feedback for season 3. Although, we're going to see the trailer, and I'm pretty sure it's too late for them to make any meaningful edits at this point.
Yeah, I think they're kind of stuck with what they got now.
But first, there's a big announcement because Hulu is part of the Disney family, and that means Dancing with the Stars. And we've had a few cast members who auditioned to be on the next season.
They didn't say who specifically, but they did mention the top contenders. It's probably either Whitney or Jen, and they really drummed it up. Played it up here, let Whitney talk about how bad she wants to win this, how she really needs this. And then they let us know it's Jen. They picked Jen.
And Jen is so excited.
You could tell Whitney's pretty crushed, but she's gracefully still applauding.
She's got the tiara on.
She's putting a smile on.
She's got to represent herself with...
She's going to give a little...
The princess wave.
The little queen wave.
Yeah. We're going to present ourselves royally and congratulate Jen on this amazing accomplishment that I wish was my own.
I think that was the point where we were like, well, yeah, I mean, how could you have her on Dancing with the Stars when people would immediately go to the RSV dancing video on TikTok? And you don't want that associated with the show, right?
I mean, that's one of your biggest moments, your most viral dance moments.
But then come to find out, Dancing with the Stars, they don't do that sort of vetting. They didn't scrub through the social media accounts. They don't really care. How many followers do you have? Okay, yeah, you're in too. This is cross promotion.
That was dirty to let her think that she did not get chosen to see how she was going to react.
They wanted to catch a reaction out of her, but she kept it together.
Well, did she? Because then she's so excited that she gets Jen up out of her chair, heavily pregnant, and they start jumping up and down together because now the excitement that she would have had originally if she had heard that she was the one who won and not Jen, now it's all coming out.
So we had a real special moment there, shared together in real time, finding out that she made it on Dancing with the Stars. What else did we learn about? Some other taboos? A BYU super weekend?
Oh my God.
I'd never heard of this
I
before.
did not bother taking notes.
No, I know.
The very small section of Mormon slang.
Well, yeah, they were talking about docking, which is like dog in the bun, stationary, different than soaking, which we've learned about.
Heather Gay explained docking
We've learned
to
about
us before.
that. Yes, we've learned about that. But a BYU super weekend where students are going to Vegas, getting married, having sex, and then getting the marriage annulled so they can go back to school on Monday.
That's like a lot of work, guys.
That's so much stuff to do. And then it'd end up with like a Ross and Rachel sort of thing where then it's like you didn't get it annulled in time.
Hello, Mr. Ross.
Hello. No, it was hello,
Mrs. Ross.
Mrs. Ross. Hello, Mr. Rachel.
Mr. Rachel.
And then it just ends up being a divorce, a full-blown divorce instead of an annulment.
But the lengths they'll go to for those loopholes, man.
The poop hole loophole is the quickest and easiest route, I suppose.
If you're interested in seeing what season 3 has to hold, there is a trailer at the very end. But sorry to disappoint you, there's no date on when season 3 is going to premiere.
TBD, I suppose. We'll just cross our fingers and hope for the best.
And it does look good, which is disappointing me yet again because I'm going to have to continue to follow Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
I still get upset every time I think about it.
A few announcements before we go. We have another podcast called Surviving Sister Wives, where we are currently reading chapter by chapter through Robin Brown's #1 New York Times bestseller, Becoming Sister Wives.
Yes, this is all in preparation for Christine Brown Woolley. Wait, Woolley Brown? Christine Brown Woolley. She has a book coming out in September, which we're waiting to get our hands on a digital copy, maybe a physical copy as well. Freaky Betch loves a physical copy.
So we're going back in time, reading through stories that have since changed, evolved, changed, were originally lies.
A little bit.
It's debatable.
Kind of a little bit of that. But that'll be for the next few months, working our way up to the new book that's coming out.
We've also got a Patreon where you can listen to hundreds of bonus episodes.
And you can catch our weekly episodes early and ad-free. Just make sure you check the episode description for the link.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.